Damien snarled as he finally settled himself, ready to take on his father, not only for the world and for his mother, but for Diana as well. Damien's body pulsed and caused him to keel over slightly from the burst of power in his chest. With a hiss, Damien growled as his body began to shift. His clothes slowly vanished, and black markings began to crawl across Damien's skin. As Damien's horns formed on his head, the air began to shift to one of extreme cold. Something about Damien began to pulse with dark energy, one I had not seen from him even before he lost his powers. As Damien finally locked eyes with the Demon Lord, a flash of black washed over his gaze, sending a vibration of fear down my back.
Let's end this.
Yo! In a show of power, the Demon Lord let out a snarl and charged forward with his sword. Damien, however, summoned a large invisible burst of energy, pushing the Demon Lord back. The Demon Lord fell back and tumbled back onto his feet after skidding across the marble with a snarl. I had to cover my face with my hands in the black gust of wind that followed, almost feeling myself slide across the floor on my heels with the wave. Damien was billowing with energy, and it definitely showed. The look of cold thirst for murder in his eyes, Damien lifted his head and raised his arms to his side. In a similar fashion to something before him, black markings on Damien's back twisted and turned, slowly pulling themselves off his skin, forming wings. Staring, surprisingly, larger than man, they shuddered and flapped themselves through the air, pushing gusts of wind forward and taunting gesture of the demon. As the Demon Lord began to stand, Damien dropped his hands in front of him and formed a large rod of black liquid in his hands. It quickly solidified in his grip, and it began to gleam brightly as one end began to protrude and curve to the end of a scythe. I knew that the gem would intensify Damien's power, but just how much did it strengthen? The Demon Lord measured Damien with his eyes, glaring hard and gripping his sword tight in anger and a dash of surprise.
How did you get this much power?
I don't answer to scum like you.
Oh! That was why Damien stepped forward and swung his scythe back to the previous Demon Lord of the Grim Ring. Despite the Demon Lord being able to carry the attack of his blade, the Demon Lord found himself skidding across the floor for Damien's attack. Damien became relentless and continued to swing and slam his scythe blade into the Demon Lord's sword. Heavy slamming of steel beating on steel as Damien began to push the Demon Lord back towards his throne. Finally, the Demon Lord was knocked back onto his throne, stunned momentarily as Damien pulled his scythe back, ready to decapitate his enemy once and for all. Unfortunately, the blade met with Demon Lord's sword at the last minute, making me grimace in aggravation. I wanted this to end, saying I wanted the Demon Lord to follow. His dance of death had gone long enough. There was no reason for the battle to prolong itself any further. The Demon Lord was clinging to the last moments, and every part of him wished to give up. Damien was more powerful. This fight would eventually. Damien pressed his body into the side, pushing against the Demon Lord.
Give up.
Trying to scare me, boy? Let me show you how it's done!
Distracted by the deadlock, Damien was suddenly kicked back through the air, then tumbling in surprise as the Demon Lord rose back onto his feet and locked eyes with me. A wave of fear shot me. I was locked, frozen in place. I attempted to break free, mentally commanding the part of my body to move, seemed to stop me. No muscle in me, he obeyed. Damien quickly tumbled back onto his feet, turning his gaze to the Demon Lord before looking back to me and seeing what he was doing to me.
Be glad, boy! I'm setting her free from the demon world!
With a sadistic howl, a red bolt of lightning rammed itself into the ceiling, causing a large rock above me to shatter off of the structure and plummet towards me.
Look out!
The boulder oh god! The boulder quickly impacted my back. It wasn't heavy enough to completely crush me against the marble, but I could tell that I had broken a river sheet. However, I felt a body press against me, barring the boulder from completely smashing me beneath. I looked up to see a familiar face, wincing at the pain embedded in her shoulder and arm.
Diana!
Despite being battered and bloodied, Diana gripped the boulder, strong like pressing its weight off of me, and taking it on herself, making sure my injuries were limited to broken bone. Diana growled and pushed the boulder off of us at last. Please indeed how fair she deserved.
Are you alright?
I could only nod, astonished at the turn of events. Diana was alive. How was that possible? Staring at her, I could tell she was near death's door, but she wasn't going to go down first. Her wings were pressed hard against her back, seemingly broken, but as she lifted me back up, a hum of purple energy rushed through Diana's body and forced her wings to flex out, snapping them into place once more.
This battle isn't over. Not by a long shot.
The pair of us looked over at the Demon Lord, seeing him emotionally seethe at the sight of us.
You just don't know when to die, do you?
Diana smirked and stepped forward, holding her hand back towards me and forming a large purple barrier around me.
We've got unfinished business to take care of first. Right, Damien? Yeah!
Woo! With an angered nod, Damien stood, gripping his scythe while Diana formed her saber in her hand, materializing a wrap around her hand and the handle to keep it in her grip.
It's over, you bastard.
Oh! Who's the bastard now, motherfucker? Baring his teeth, the Demon Lord gripped his sword and stepped down from the dais to meet Damien and Diana halfway.
I will slaughter you both!
A violent shudder ran up my spine as his words, before Damien and Diana vaulted forward, slamming their weapons into the Demon Lord's parrying sword. At the collision, a bright flash of red, purple, and black energy sparked and lit the room like a large firework. I moved to the edge of the barrier, trying to watch from the safety of the spell around me, as Damien and Diana slowly began to beat down the Demon Lord's defenses, the spark between their clashing blinding the Demon Lord. No amount of bravado could save the Demon Lord now. The room slowly began to crumble just from the heavy sound waves of their fighting, causing rock upon rubble to fall onto the marble almost like hail. This time, Damien was nowhere near defenseless. Damien would escape with me, and the Demon Lord would die here alone. I felt confidence run through me at the idea. Damien could do this. Tired of the steel battle, Diana swooped around the Demon Lord and slashed at the back of his knees, forcing him to fall forward and drop his sword from the impact.
Enough! End this!
Without a breath of mercy, Damien raised his scythe back, taking aim at his target.
Goodbye, Father.
A flash of black energy swept the room as Damien swung his scythe down and through the neck of the Demon Lord. For a moment, nothing seemed to have occurred. It wasn't until a large open line appeared on the Demon Lord's neck, and his eyes began to glaze over that I realized what had happened. In an angled cut, not perfect by any means, the Demon Lord's head slid off his shoulders and tumbled to the marble floor, rolling until it stopped on the edge of one of his horns. From his newly opened neck, black and red blood began to gush out and drain as the body fell forward. The sound of his body hitting the ground echoed through the chamber, solidifying the death of his father. The battle had been won at last. I could finally breathe. The realization of the entire event coursed through me like a wave as a weight lifted itself from my heart. The curse, I knew then, had been lifted at last. I was free to go home. I began drowning in feelings of joy and relief, happy that it was all over and overwhelmed by everything that had happened. As the scythe beside me faded alongside the barrier around me, Damien slowly turned to face me, hearing my slowly growing cries of joy. It was almost overwhelming. We won. We really won. Damien slowly started to walk towards me, his form fading from the demon he got the chance to be. What the hell is this sentence? Damien slowly started to walk towards me, his form fading from the demon he got the chance to be, to the human he actually was. His clothes slowly materialized around his body, but the bruises and soot of the battle remained as a reminder of what had happened. Just looking into his eyes, I could see the satisfaction of his deeds blossom in his gaze. He stared at me, happy to see me, and I felt myself grin from ear to ear at him. I wasn't being pulled away from him, nor was he dead. Damien and I were together, and we were okay. Damien finally stopped in front of me and wrapped his arms around me, letting everything sink in within my embrace as I buried my face in his shoulder. I was tired of seeing the death around me now. All I wanted was to go home.
You did it, Damien.
Yeah. We can go home now.
I looked up at him, feeling the ache of the lost adrenaline in my system course through me as I clung to him. The war for us was over. At last. Diana, however, collapsed onto the ground on the dais of the throne, panting for air as she stared at the pair of us in exhaustion. Seru! Before Diana could finish her sentence, Diana's eyes rolled into the back of her head and she completely passed out onto the ground. In a panicked rush, I thrust my hand out towards her.
Seru!
In a flash of light, Seru's form materialized and looked around, surprised at the summoning. As his eyes landed on the passed-out Diana, he slammed down to his knees and cradled her in his arms. Relieved to see her breathing, he hugged her to his chest, giving her his energy. I clung to Damien, now mentally wiped out. Who knew the end of a battle was so exhausting?
Anyone?
Oh my... Laundry. You damn fool. I had fought with Lizette once before, but it was nowhere near as intense as this fight was. Not by a long shot. Damien and I looked at each other, both of us feeling the lack of energy from the battle attempt to consume our bodies, before leaning into one another for a well-deserved rest. One thing was for certain. This chapter of my story had come to an end. It was over. The war was finally over. As the smoke cleared, we were victorious. The soldiers left standing were the ones to cheer in victory. The sky became littered with the howls and cries of the joyful and happy. The tyranny of the Demon Lord had ended. But what now? Home was now possible. We could go back to the human world, and we could live our lives as we wanted. It was something I desperately wanted, and yet my body was not ready to make the journey just yet. You could say, like I just said, my body was not ready. We had to celebrate the success of the war, after all, on the corpses of our allies. As the full moon rose over Lilith Castle towards the dawn, the entirety of the demon world celebrated with endless drink and food, laughter and dancing. It was so unreal, but the courtyard that I could see was filled with smiles and happy faces. We had stayed for one more night, traveling back to Lilith Castle to rest and return home as healthy as we could be. After all, we had just gone through a war. One more night in the demon world wasn't going to hurt us.